Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Amanda. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I'm excited.
So for our listeners, our viewers who might not know who you are, do you want to tell us what is the work that you do and who do you do it for?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Amanda Kingsmith. I'm the host of MBOM, or Mastering the Business of Yoga podcast. And I'm really passionate about the business side of yoga, which I know is a little bit weird to a lot of people, but I really love that side of things. I'm also a 500-hour registered yoga teacher. And on top of working with yoga teachers one-on-one, I also work with a couple of studios. And that's actually something that I started doing before I was even a yoga teacher. So I started working part-time specifically for the studio that we're going to talk about today back in 2014, before I'd even done my teacher training. And it was one of the reasons that I really wanted to become a yoga teacher. So yeah, that's me.
That's amazing. Well, I was telling my daughter today, she's like, who are you interviewing? I said, well, it's one of the Amandas, because we have a peer mastermind group and there's two Amandas. And I said, actually, this is the Amanda where I decided, oh, I'm going to make a podcast for yoga teachers. It'll help them. And then I thought, I have this original idea. And then I found your podcast. And I have to say, like, I was disappointed, not with your content at all. I was like, oh no, it's already been done. And I've told you this story that I like went down in the dumps a little bit. And then I thought, no, I could, like, there's still room. It's like thinking there's not enough room for two yoga teachers in a community, which is silly. So, and since then, I'm really excited to announce that we've formed a mastermind with two others who also do similar work, Mado and Amanda McKinney. And we all podcast for yoga teachers and we all help yoga teachers. So I'm excited that today we get to dive in and talk about how you started to do this work while you were away. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was actually in Panama, like Panama City, Panama, when the pandemic was hitting, which is a wild story in and of itself. And it was kind of crazy because I'd actually booked a week off. I was not going to be working for the whole week that, like, when the pandemic hit, because my parents were supposed to be coming from Canada down to Panama to visit us. And then, WHO announced pandemic, coronavirus was really heating up. And thank God I had that week booked off, because both the yoga studios that I work with ended up having to shut their doors to the public and take their studios online. And so with this specific studio, which is based in Canmore, Alberta, called the Yoga Lounge, the studio owners' kind of guideline for shutting the studio was when the province of Alberta shut schools down. And so on Sunday, March 15th, the Alberta government announced that public schools would be shut indefinitely. And he said, okay, tomorrow is the last day of classes. He's like, management team, I need you. We have to figure out how to broadcast our classes tomorrow. And we're fully online on Tuesday. So in pretty much like 24 hours, we took a studio online. And I was also in the midst of, at that point, my husband and I had been like, okay, we're coming back to Canada. So I was also like packing my life up from Panama and trying to get back home to Canada before, borders shut and flights stopped running. So it was wild. It was a wild couple of days. I know you and I chatted, and it was just like 5 days felt like, honestly, like a couple of months for me.
Yes, no kidding. Well, it was super stressful. And I was so glad when you made well, I remember one Voxer message. I was like, well, I can see how you're weighing all these things out. And then I finally was just like, just come home. Just come home. I was like, you can ignore it if you don't want to hear my thoughts on this. Well, we're so glad that you were able to come home and help these studios out as well. And I have to say, in that time as well, you really supported me, even just as a friend, through Voxer. Like, being able to talk about things that were going on with the pandemic was super supportive. And I know that you've been doing that with these studios. And I feel like you were a little bit ahead of things. Like, you were watching things as they were coming and you were like, okay. And there's this fine dance of like waiting and seeing, when do we put policies in place? And our yoga studios are starting to even look at, okay, what about reopening policies? Or how do I film classes that might reopen and have this mix of people online and in the studio? So I'm glad that we get to dig into how you did this with the studio. So what's the name of the studio that we're going to talk about today?
So it's called the Yoga Lounge, and it's based right in the heart of the Canadian Rockies in Canmore, Alberta. It is really cold here right now. We've had snow the last couple of days, which I know you've also had in Ontario, which is just, it should not snow in May. I'm just going to throw it out there. I know I'm Canadian. I should be used to this, but despite the snow and the chilly weather, I think it's like currently, according to my Apple Watch, it's 2 degrees Celsius right now, which for those of you who are in Fahrenheit, that's really low 30s. It's barely above zero. It's definitely below zero, or below freezing. Sorry, it's barely above freezing, and there's snow in the mountains right now. So beautiful location, stunning mountains, but the weather's not the best here.
It's not like Panama. You left that weather. Well, at least it's getting warmer a little bit. So I'll just bring that website up if you can. Yeah, you can see it there. So this is the yoga studio website, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
Nice. So then it says right on the front page, online classes during COVID-19. And how many teachers are there at this studio?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's probably close to 20 teachers. So it's like a pretty large studio. I mean, you can actually see the photo right there is a photo of like when you walk into the studio from like the check-in area. And that's probably like 1/3 of what the studio actually looks like. So in full capacity, I mean, we can comfortably fit like 35 to 40 people in the studio.
Wow, that's amazing. It looks like a beautiful space with amazing floors as well. They look really nice.
Yeah, and what you can't see is where the light is coming through on that window. We have a perfect view of the mountains here. So on a clear day, it's just really stunning. It's super grounding to be able to practice towards the mountains and to be able to do, just your sun salutes and your mountain pose right towards the mountains. So it's like my favorite yoga studio in the world. It's so beautiful there.
Oh, that's nice. And so then how do people sign up? If they go to this site, how do they sign up to do online yoga?
Yeah, so if you go up to the top and then you can go to schedule.
Okay.
We've actually kept things pretty much the same for how people do stuff. So again, you can see like everything is online. And then, so if you wanted to do a class, you could sign up, like say our 6:30 a.m. class is already passed, but you could sign up for our 9:30. And so it takes you through the Mind Body Online check-in process. So we've kept most of that the same. So if you were to click on that, it would just take you into like a Mind Body cart. You would check it out and do that. And then what we've done is we've updated our auto email that goes to somebody when they sign up to give them the Zoom information so that they're able to log in.
Okay. I'll just click here and we'll see what happens. So this is what it looks like on MindBody. I used to use this at a studio. I won't sign up, but for anyone. And what are the benefits of MindBody for this studio particularly?
Yeah, so we've used MindBody for as long as the studio has been around. The current owner, who's Jeff Ma, he took over the studio in 2012, and the studio was founded in 2002. It's gone through a couple owners since then, but he's the current owner that I work with and who I've always worked with because I started there in 2014. And basically, MindBody, I mean, it has pros and cons. I guess the biggest con would be that it's more expensive. It's probably the most expensive software that's out there for yoga studios to use. But especially in 2012 and 2002, there wasn't a lot of competition. And so, for us, when we looked at going online, we looked at like, okay, these are the things that are already working well for the studio. And these are the things that we're going to have to shift to be online. And quite honestly, changing our software didn't even feel like an option at that point because we already had so much to do in terms of like training our teachers and making sure our tech works and, getting the managers, the owner, and all the teachers adjusted to a new technology would have been absolutely insane. And for us, it's been relatively seamless. MindBody doesn't. I think they actually just announced their like live stream stuff. They've been pumping out more online abilities since this has happened. But, in terms of like how it integrates, like I know I've worked with PunchPass a little bit and PunchPass integrates really nicely with Zoom. MindBody doesn't do that so much. So you do have to make sure that there is actually like kind of like a part in between like you and the student. Like you need to make sure that they have the information they need is what I'm trying to communicate. So what we've done is my body has like these auto emails that you can do. And so we already had one going out that was like, you're registered for the 9:30 class. So if you signed up for that, you would get like a receipt and an email that confirms your registration. And what we've done is we've adjusted that to say, all the classes are online. Here's how you get into the live stream.
Okay. And then do you have different Zoom, because I know you're also using Zoom with that. Do you have different Zoom rooms for each class? Like, how is that working?
No, that was one of the big conversations that we had. So I'm one of two managers, the other manager and the studio owner, myself. So the three of us are the ones having most of these like decision-making conversations. And I was the only one familiar with Zoom when we started this. So leading up to that date of March 15th, when, you know, schools were closed, we had lots of conversations about what this looked like. And, you know, like you said, I know you'd been following it for a while. I had been following coronavirus for ages. And part of that was because I was out of my home country, and also because my husband teaches English to Chinese kids. So he works for part-time for a Chinese company. And so he knew about coronavirus back in January when this hit, because all of a sudden his kids aren't in school anymore. They can't leave. So he'd be like, what did you do today? And I'd be like, nothing. I played games. I watched TV.
Right. And he was like, wait a second. Right.
And we're like, what is going on with this like virus thing? And so we were kind of watching it, and we were watching it like spread around the world. And we're like, we should be really like educated on this and know what's going on, because, you know, we're not at home, and you could probably make a case for being educated regardless if you're in your home country or not. But there's certainly something more freaky about being in a country and potentially facing some sort of lockdown like China went through, which Panama has gone through since I left, and not knowing what the government's going to do, and, you know, not fully speaking the language, et cetera, et cetera. So I was watching this for a while, and I was checking pretty much, you know, every day, every other day. And so as soon as Alberta got their first case, I messaged the studio owner and the manager and said, hey guys, you know, coronavirus is there. We need to start having conversations about what this looks like. And it was more at that point, like, we need to make sure that our students are safe and that our teachers are safe. And so it was more like cleaning protocols and asking people who've been out of the country to not come to class, and, you know, making sure that like if people were sick, they were asked not to come to the studio, and just that sort of typical stuff. And then as things were progressing, you know, kind of first week of March, getting into the second week of March, we had some really real conversations about what it was going to look like if and when we had to close our doors. And so I said, hey, I've used this great video conferencing software called Zoom. I can set us up with an account. We can test it. I think it'd work great. It's super easy to use. And so that's a really long answer to what you asked me. But basically, I was like, I think that we should go with the same room for everything, and we should ask people to register. It's going to be a lot easier on the administrative side of things, and there's going to be a certain like honor policy with it. And, you know, you can pull attendance reports on Zoom. So we're still able to make sure that like Kate and I, she's the other manager, Kate and I split the attendance check-ins. So we'll do the check-ins for the classes, and we just make sure that everyone's imported into MindBody Online, and that everyone is registered. And honestly, we've had no problems. Like, we've been doing this since March 15th, and everyone's been amazing. Like, people aren't just showing up for classes and not paying. It's been really cool to see.
So a couple of things here. How do you check the attendance through Zoom? Do you have the webinar feature to do that?
No, so you can actually do it on your browser. So that's the key. Like, you know how you have your app that you would pull up to like join or start a meeting? You actually just go to like zoom.us or zoom.us. And then from there, you click on, is it going to mess things up if I click to a different
No, thing? You can share. Yeah, you can do that. And you can also share your screen so that maybe we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, let me.
And I'll just shout out to Laura, who said, hi, Laura. And also this person, which you might have to go and allow StreamYard to use your name. I don't know if you know Katie. Maybe someone's tagging someone who owns a studio. I'm not sure. But if you're here watching, whoever tagged Katie and Katie. All right.
Can you see that?
I can see us on that share.
Okay,
You
can you
might
see
have
now?
there you go. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is actually like a real life example of the attendance. I'll just kind of scroll quick just for the sake of the fact that students' names are there.
Right.
But what you do is, so I'll just do it from the beginning, and hopefully nobody's judging how many tabs I have open right now. It's not one of my it's not one of
Looks
my
like my
strengths.
computer.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So this is what Zoom looks like on the browser, and then I should be signed in. Yeah, so then you go to my account and you get into kind of the back end. And so if you need recordings, they're here. That's one of the main things. We also use this quite a bit. But you go down and you click on account management and then reports and then active hosts. It's kind of like a really weird way to find it. And then what you actually have to do here is you need to toggle the columns. All of these were selected when I first started, which meant I couldn't see all of them. I just toggled to what I needed, but the key that you need is participants. So you can see like with the different classes. So I think this just has till yesterday. So yesterday morning, we had 17 people. Our 9:30 class had 34 people. Our noon class had 20. This was like a test one we did. Our 5:30 had 9 people, and then our 7 p.m. had 12. What this morning we had 9. So then, for example, like our 6:30 classes, I'm not usually like up in time to do attendance live. Like if I can just click into the Zoom room and do attendance there, make sure everything's good technically, then I'll do that. But otherwise, I can just pull this up and I can see everyone that attended the class.
That's amazing. That's so handy to know. Thank you for walking us through that.
Yeah, no worries.
Carolyn, don't worry, you're not late. We're just getting into the good stuff here. And if anyone has questions for Amanda, anything about Zoom recording, doing this through a studio, doing this through multiple classes, make sure to put it in the comments and we'll grab those questions. Carl has a good question here. He wants to know what you do with the recorded classes. So do you record them? That's the first question.
Yeah, so we do record them. We've asked all the teachers to record their classes. Part of the conversation around that is that you do have to make sure you have permission from your teachers to record. So we record in speaker view so that we don't record any, because if you were to record your students, you would also need, permission from your students. You would need them to sign like a release form and stuff. That's, a big part of the legal side of online yoga, which I'm not an expert in, but I did an interview with Corey Sterling from Conscious Counsel, and that was one of the things he talked about, that you need to get a signed piece of paper that says like the student's okay with that. And then also from the teacher side of things, you do have to make sure that they're okay with you using their recording, and that they have to be clear on like what it's being used for and if there's compensation, et cetera, et cetera. So we cleared with all of our teachers that it was good for them to record. Part of it's for quality. So part of it, so we can go back and we can look. So for example, yesterday, the studio owner went in to teach at 9:30 a.m. The microphone wasn't working. So we use a lavalier microphone to make sure that the audio is good. It wasn't working. So then we went back through the history of the videos to find like where it stopped working. And we were actually able to pinpoint the moment in one of the teacher's classes where she moved in a way where she put too much body weight on the transmission for the lavalier mic. And so having that for quality is really good. Like to be able to go and say, if a student says like, hey, this teacher had this issue in class, we can go back and actually look at it. So it's been really good for the like quality control side of things. But then also what we've been doing is we've been putting the videos up on Vimeo, and we're just offering them as a bonus for our members, just because our quality is not like, we're recording off of a like MacBook little webcam thing. I'm using a better webcam right now than that even, just because it's got better light. And we're just using like the webcam off the MacBook Pro. And so we're not like a professional film studio, but we thought, oh, what a cool bonus to offer our members who, for the most part, are paying their regular monthly rate. This way they have access not only to the online classes, but they have access to, the recordings that are of good quality. They can practice offline, and then we'll also keep that for them even after the pandemic. So they'll be able to use that if they go on vacation or something like that, they can take the yoga lounge with them wherever they go.
That's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks for walking us through that. Thanks for the question also, Carl. And Carolyn, I just want to give a shout out that I know you actually go by Bitsy. So I just wanted to correct myself on that and say hi. One other question. Well, one thing I was going to ask is, which episode is it of the podcast where you covered this with Corey? I was just starting to look that up.
Yeah, it's pretty recent. It's from the month of April, I believe.
Okay.
I'm just looking super quick.
If you have a link to that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I can grab a link.
Okay, that'd be good. And I'll just also share the Yoga Lounge website in case anyone wants to check out, the wording on the website, how they've put this together, or if you want to attend a class, that would be amazing as well, because you can sign up for classes right there at the yogalounge.ca. So it's a Canadian website.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Nick. Nick is saying hello. Nick's in BC. Nice to see you here. So you're recording from a Mac laptop at the studio. Teachers are going in there, or do they sometimes record from their homes?
So we have a couple situations where teachers are recording from their homes. We have, in general, wanted teachers to come to the studio. We have some cleaning policies in place to make sure that everyone's good and that we're keeping our teachers healthy and safe. But for the quality of it, just because we're not offering any of our classes for free. Like I said, our monthly membership has, for our members, for most of them, unless they've been heavily affected by COVID, lost their jobs, etc., has stayed the same. And that rate is 95 plus GST, so 99.75 Canadian dollars. We have adjusted other prices, for people who want to tune in from other places, because we're in a tourist town. I mean, we have people who have practiced with us from all over the country, all over the US. And now some of them are like, oh, cool, I can join you again. And so we put in special online COVID pricing. But in general, for our members, the pricing has stayed the same. So we wanted to keep the quality really, really solid, essentially, and have the professional mic. And, we have a wall that has a beautiful goddess painted on it. And it's got really great lighting for being able to shoot the videos. And then the studio owners actually set up, separate lighting. When you go in the studio, it's a full on, we've got a setup going on. The computer's propped up on a chair on top of blocks, and there's all this lighting. There's power cables that are running towards the front. We've got a 50-foot Ethernet cable to make sure the internet stays strong. So it's not a simple setup. There's quite a bit going on. However, we have had a couple of situations where teachers have needed to teach from their homes. One of them, expressed early on that she wasn't comfortable teaching from the studio due to health reasons. And so we said, of course, you can continue teaching your class from home. Either myself or the other studio manager just does a quality check with them. So we hop on Zoom, we make sure that they're in a space that's, well lit, that they can be seen, that they can be heard well. So they either have their own microphone or a pair of AirPods or something that's going to work well for students to hear them. We actually have one of our teachers she lived here in Canmore for 10 years. She was a local favorite. She's Italian, and then she also got her Canadian citizenship before she moved back to Italy. She moved back last June, so she's been gone for almost a year now. And it's been such a blessing because we've put her back on the schedule for one of our early morning classes.
Amazing. Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
So there were a couple things where I wanted to ask you about the microphone. I also want to give a shout out to Carl because he found a link and has put it here in the comments to that podcast.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Carl.
The microphone that you're using, what is it?
It's the Rode FM wireless. It's a transmitter microphone.
Okay. We can link to that in our show notes in the Connected Yoga Teacher Collective. We won't, or you can stick it in the comments later if people have questions about it.
Sure. Yeah, I can grab a link for it. You can get it off Amazon. It is a little bit of wouldn't say like the highest priced microphone out there, but it's definitely like an investment. The studio owner actually had this before, so that was great. One of the challenges we have had is just like overuse of the microphones. I mean, we have pretty much 5 classes a day on the schedule, and teachers are teaching with these microphones for an hour to 75 minutes, and they're getting beat up. So we had one microphone break a couple weeks in. We just had a microphone challenge yesterday. And, fortunately, we still have 2 microphones, but it's challenging to get microphones replaced right now. I mean, you guys probably know Amazon is not so fast right now. Obviously, they have less employees and they have to keep their employees safe. But getting stuff is like a little bit slow. So that's been like one of the biggest challenges we've had, and just one of the biggest concerns, because if we don't have a microphone, it's not good quality. Like to move 8 to 12 feet back from a MacBook and try to just use the microphone on that, it sounds like you're underwater. Like it's straight out of like Harry Potter 4 when he's like, trying to figure out the egg underwater and it's all bubbly and stuff like that.
I love that you just pulled a Harry Potter reference in.
I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to get that or not.
She
but I love Harry Potter.
Okay, so the microphone and the recording, so you're putting it up on Vimeo. Is that where you're storing all of the videos then, is on Vimeo, and then it's just members that get that?
Yeah, so those are kind of the more edited videos. Once a week, we kind of like cull through the videos that are on Zoom and just delete ones that are maybe not good quality, like maybe the teacher bumped the microphone during and had to fiddle around with it for a second. Maybe they didn't change the battery pack before. Maybe somebody didn't get muted during class, and so somebody else's video is popping up. Sometimes we just get rid of those videos. And then assuming that everything's good, then we'll put them up on Vimeo for our members. Yeah. So people can, if they have a membership, auto renew membership, then we give them access to this catalog of videos, and then they can practice later.
Have you then added someone on as video editor? Like, I know that you have experience with editing audio, are you the person now that's like, okay, I'll get these up there?
So I was for the first couple of weeks, and I was like, this is so challenging. I was like, I'm already working so many hours doing this. Like, it's a lot of work to get a studio online and to just face all the new like tech things that are happening. I mean, people watching, you probably know, like, it's totally different to teach. It's totally different to manage a studio that's online. It's just a very different experience, and it's been amazing. I'm so grateful for it. But, there's been challenges. And so I was just, throwing up videos as fast as I could. And then we were like, okay, no, we need to like quality control these a little bit better. Let's pull off some of the older videos. So we've got a bit of a process between the 3 of us now. I was thinking though, I was like, I feel like we should just hire somebody to be doing this, but it's a bit of a challenging time to hire somebody, and the studio is thriving and it's doing really well. But at the same time, I feel like it is like, if we can do it between the 3 of us, then we're like, let's just do it for now, because we're not looking to, compete with Yoga Anytime or Glow Yoga or anything like that. Like, we're not the same level of quality as they are. Like, it's an online class that's been recorded, that was live, that is now available for later for members.
Right. Okay. And then the lighting, you said, and the other thing I was thinking of, so 2 things, the lighting. And Nick shared yesterday on Instagram. Go follow Nick if you don't already. Nick, if you're listening, you can post a link to this thing that you shared, I guess, or maybe it was on Facebook. Anyway, it's the view that the students have and then the view that the teachers see. So it's kind of like the wall where everyone's practicing, and it'd be so cool to see an image of what it looks like in the studio if you can get one of your teachers to take a photo and share that. So I'm wondering what it looks like, what's pointing at the teacher in terms of lighting.
Yeah, so we have like overhead lights for the studio. Like, the studio has, a pretty high ceiling, and then there's lights that are overhead. So all the lights need to go on for all classes. So that's one of the things we ask. And then they're on like one of the lateral walls. So I guess you walk in, and so from that photo from the website, you would turn right, and it's against that wall, and it's got like a very beautiful like goddess. I actually took a screenshot yesterday. Maybe I can pull that up and show you guys. That would be easier than me trying to describe this studio that no one here has ever been to.
Nick's also put up the Instagram link that goes to that post, which was so cool because it looks really serene for student. And oftentimes it's like this whole recording thing. So I have to say that Nick's looks really serene in both directions, but I have seen like a mess of wires and all kinds of things.
Okay.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
guys see that? Yeah. So we've got this like beautiful goddess. This is the studio owner. His name's Jeff. And you can just see, I just thought those were really cool. I was monitoring his class last night and it just looked really awesome. So I thought that I would grab that. It's just in legs up the wall. So there's that. And then I have a photo on my phone of the studio, but not on my computer, which is where I'm at. But if you were to turn it around, you'd see the computer on, a folding chair stacked on blocks. And then you'd see like power cords running. And then you'd see like big overhead lights that are kind of surrounding that whole space, or standing lights, sorry, not overhead lights. And then there's actually a ping pong table set up right now. So you can see that too.
And so the lights that you have, do you know what they are? Did you order them for this, or did you have them for doing photos, or where did those
The studio owner actually had them from like previous videos. So something that's actually interesting to note is a couple of years ago, we were actually talking about creating like an online library of videos. And so we created probably like 4 of them of the studio owner. And he had like, he has a DSLR with this transmitter mic, the one that we're using now. And we would set it up and he would record videos kind of in that area where you saw the goddess. And we were going to create like a whole library of them just again for our members. They'd be higher quality. And, as life has it, something kind of derailed that project a little bit. We never got like super far into it, but we did give members access. So we already had members that were using these online videos. And so he had actually purchased the lights already. So in some ways we were like sort of set up for this a little bit. I think the biggest thing that was challenging is that it's totally different when you hit record on your camera and you record, a class that you can edit later versus adding the students in. So you've got all the students on Zoom. You want it to feel like a live class and have that community feel, yet you also have to like teach to a computer screen. And then, the things like making sure the internet's going to stay stable and making sure that everyone's signing in and everyone's paying. Those were the things that were really challenging for us during this, as opposed to the actual, like, I guess, tech, like not that, like the supply side of things. But I don't actually know what kind of lights they are. I can message him later and ask him, but I wasn't a part of buying those, so I'm not too sure.
Right. Yeah, if they work well, if he wants to share that, that'd be great. So Bitsy wants to know, are you using an app for editing? So yeah, you're putting them into Vimeo. And how are you editing the video?
Yeah, so basically what happens is they go into Zoom. So we record them onto the cloud so that all of us have access to them. And then I usually like cull through them and pick out the ones that are good. And then I send them to the studio owner and the other manager. And then the studio owner is using iMovie. So he's working off of a second Mac for his editing. And so iMovie is just, the free software that's on there. And so we're using iMovie to edit and then putting them up into Vimeo.
This is super important, this little step where you said we record them to the cloud so we can all have access to them, because if that teacher hit record to this device, that computer would fill up and you wouldn't be able to access them from other places.
Yeah, he's got the computer we're using is like it's got a lot of space on it, thankfully. So we could have done that for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we're recording like 5 classes that are an hour long a day. Like we're continuously getting the email from Zoom that says like, you've exceeded your storage limit, please clear out videos. So it's like I can't even keep up with like how often Zoom sends that email because they don't give you that much space just on the pro plan. But yeah, iMovie's been the app that we've been using just because we're working off Macs, and that's the free video editing software.
Okay. Good question, Bitsy. Thanks for that. Nick says, beautiful painting. I agree. It's an amazing painting that is at the studio there.
Yeah.
So my next question is, what are you seeing from students? Are they showing their videos? Do they have their video off? What is the feedback that you're getting from your students as well?
Yeah, so in terms of videos, we've told them that it's up to them if they want to put their videos on or not. Um, in general, our clientele is a little bit more mature. So there has been like some tech challenges with some of our members. Like, we get emails into the inbox, which either myself or the other studio manager are monitoring. And it's like, I don't know how to get Zoom working. And we walk them through the process of how to do it. We've got like a nice little list of how to download the app and how to get in and what to do and what to select and stuff now. So that's been helpful. Sometimes they're just not showing their videos because they have no idea how to do it on their device. Other times there's been like, oh, I'm in like weird lighting right now, or, my husband's working in the background, and they'll just let us know like, hey, I'm here. I'm just not turning on my video because of X reason. And we're totally fine with that. There's no pressure to turn on their video. We want them to feel very comfortable and, safe in the space, just like we would kind of cultivate in the studio. In terms of feedback, the feedback has been amazing. Like, honestly, I would say the feedback has been probably like 99% positive, 99% like grateful. People have written really sweet emails, like just saying, this is the only normal part of my day. I'm so grateful that I have this. And something that we've done is we've asked all the teachers to sign on 10 minutes early, one, to troubleshoot if Zoom needs an update or the internet's not working, or, et cetera, et cetera. So they have time to call one of us and let us know that there's something going wrong, or restart the computer, et cetera, test the microphone. But another part of it is so that our students can sign on and they can chat with one another, because that's a big piece of the yoga studio. I mean, it's a community. These people are friends. And, we have like groups of members who have been members since the studio started in 2002, much before my time, before Jeff's time. And they go for coffee after their classes, and they don't have that right now. So for them, We're still trying to give them a little piece of that. So big thing is like starting the classes early, and then also ending on time, coming over, unmuting everyone and having a little conversation with them and letting them chat with one another. And it's been cool to see, like, people are like, oh my gosh, hey, I haven't seen you in so long. How are you doing? And stuff like that. So it's a piece that I think is really essential to kind of making it feel like normal. And I think it's something that you don't get from just the recordings or from a recorded site. You don't get that community vibe. And it's tricky to kind of manage how to do that and how to kind of hold space for that. But we've just found like letting them talk before and after class really gives them that sort of experience, just like they would get when they show up for class early and when they chat with their friends afterwards.
Oh, that's so sweet. So you're doing 5 classes a day there, 7 days a week?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, our schedule is not the exact same every day. Like Sundays we have 4 classes. I think Wednesday or Saturdays we have 3 classes, but every other day we have 5 classes. So Monday to Friday we have 6:30 a.m., 9:30 a.m., noon, 5:30 p.m., and 7 p.m.
Nice. And then the teachers are there a little bit early. Is there a set amount of time? Like, do you tell people, hey, if you want to show up X amount of time, you can chat before?
Yeah, we've kind of like let people know, you can stay unmuted, you can turn your video on, you can, chat with people. So we've just told them, we've asked the teachers to sign on 10 minutes early, and we've just told students they can come like 5 to 10 minutes early, the same as they would for a normal class at the studio. And it seems to be working really well so far. And it's also allowed us to catch like most tech errors that might come to. So that's also been good from like an administrative side of things. Like, getting a panicked text at 11:50 being like, I can't get Zoom to open, and one of us can hop on the phone and kind of walk through the process of restarting that is a lot better than if you're trying to do that at 11:57. And then we're starting to get emails that are like, is the new class happening today? What's going on?
Oh, that's good that it works that way as well. And then how does it work in terms of paying teachers? Is that the same setup as it was when they were teaching at the studio?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for the month of, I guess, what's the month that just passed? April. For the month of March, the studio owner did like e-transfers as opposed to writing physical checks, just because that was, I feel like for us, that kind of felt like the peak of the virus, where it was like, we don't want people coming to the studio if they don't need to be there. We don't want to like mix germs in any way. The virus can live on paper. So he did e-transfers for that. But other than that, this last month, checks were written as normal. In terms of payment, pay has been kept, the same. Teachers received like a generous base rate, and then also, so they received $50 a class, and then they used to get bonuses for over 10 people. And just because of kind of the uncertainty and the fact that we decreased our prices a little bit, the bonuses are the only thing that's been pulled at this time. So one of the key things for the studio owner and in our conversations was like, our teachers need to get paid. And this is something that, as you know, is really important to me, like both as a yoga teacher and as somebody who works in the business side of things. I've had friends who have like been bent over backwards for the studios that they work with and been compensated nothing during this. Right. I have one friend who was offered 15 Canadian dollars for a 75-minute class.
Wow.
I told her to say no to that. Like, that's pretty much under minimum wage. Like,
yeah.
like you could, if you have, 5 students that want to practice with you, you could charge $10 a class, which I think is like relatively low, relatively affordable. And you could make more than that. Like, why would you take $15 a class to put your time and energy in showing up, promoting all of this stuff? Like, I just think that that's way too low for people to be paying teachers. And I understand that, studios are struggling and everyone's financial situation is different. But one thing that is really important to me is just as a studio owner and as somebody who works with studio owners understanding that your teachers are like the heart of your community.
So
you
true.
can have the most beautiful paintings on the wall, and you can have the best smelling scents, and you can have the most like Instagrammable view. But if your teachers are not quality, people will not come. And, as yoga teachers, we need to remember that we are the heart of these yoga studios. And in exchange, like, we need to be compensated fairly for that. So I was really grateful because, as a manager, like, the studio is not mine. It doesn't belong to me. I work with the studio owner, and obviously my opinion's respected, but at the end of the day, it's his call on things. One of the things I love about working with this particular studio owner is that he is he's a teacher himself. He teaches for the studio. He was a teacher before an owner for, 15 years. So he knows what it's like to be a full-time teacher. And so he always thinks of the teachers first. And that was his key thing. Like, I need to keep paying my teachers and I need to keep paying my managers. That's what needs to happen here.
That's so good. Just for reference, for those who are outside of Canada, do you know what the minimum wage in Alberta is?
It's actually a good question. I think
I don't know what it is.
I think it went
I know
up.
It's higher than the US. Yeah.
I thought it was 15, but maybe it's less than that.
I feel like in Ontario, it's somewhere between 13 and 15. I might be thinking of studio or student versus. So I just want our US listeners or people from around the world to know that it might be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think our minimum wage is higher. I think our minimum wage is higher than the US.
Yes. Bitsy's saying, did you already have Ethernet or did you have to install for online internet consistency?
We already had an Ethernet cable, like a short one that ran to, so we used like a really old MacBook to do our regular sign-in. That's the only thing that's on it is like access to MindBody Online. And it was actually connected to the Ethernet cable because the internet here can just be really finicky sometimes. So we just felt like it was better to just have the Ethernet cable because the internet going out was something that stressed teachers out, long before COVID. What we did have to do is get like a long extension cord for the Ethernet. So fortunately, the studio owner is very well connected in town, and he had a friend who happened to have like a long cable. Like, when we went through the list of things we needed, I think the hardest thing to find was like extra Lysol wipes and alcohol and stuff for keeping the studio clean. The cable wasn't an issue. So yeah, we had the Ethernet capacity with our router. And then we just had to get like an extension cord to run it to the computer, like actually in the studio space.
Yeah, Bitsy, I would look at your router and see if you have an Ethernet plugin, because that's how I have to do that here. I don't know if you can see that blue cord on the floor there. That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
It runs right to my MacBook, and then you need what's called the dongle, which I think is the strangest name for a piece of technology.
It's the weirdest name. But yeah, you can use like if you have a newer Apple device or a newer, I don't really actually know for PCs, maybe PCs still have the capacity for Ethernet, but yeah, you can get, like, I know with MacBooks, you can just get a little, it's like a USB to Ethernet dongle converter thing.
And then we had gone through the editing. So this studio uses, Amanda was saying this studio uses iMovie for editing. And there is the ability in Zoom to like clip the beginning and the end sort of thing. But if you're getting into stronger editing, iMovie would be the thing. I don't know what you would use for a PC though.
My friends recommended something to me the other day because I wanted to know about PC. Let me just grab it.
Sure.
It is. So I haven't used this personally. Everything I use is Apple. I've used iMovie, but she recommended Shotcut. So it's shotcut.org. She said it's open source and it's kind of like the way Audacity is. For those of you who have edited audio. Yeah. So Shotcut is what she recommended. She works off a PC and she tried a couple different softwares and she said, that one was better for her where she's at in her business than paying for, one of the Adobe Premiere or Adobe Edition, whichever one it is.
Right. And then Bitsy's also saying, how long does the battery last for that Rode mic?
Yeah, it lasts a couple hours as long as you make sure it's full at the beginning of class. It's not going to die during class, or at least we haven't experienced it dying, assuming that the battery is like good and the lifespan is healthy. But we have like a process where you need to like put the battery on the battery pack and then take that other one out and change it over. So checking the battery is part of the checklist that teachers have. But yeah, it does last like a couple hours. So it's pretty solid for teaching and even teaching kind of like back-to-back classes.
I don't know if you'd be up for sharing this checklist. It might be helpful. And the other thing I heard you say is you kind of have this thing that you send to people when they're having trouble with Zoom. So I don't know if that's something that then you could share as well. You can let us know. It will be over in the collective because I know you'd have to ask the studio as well.
Yeah.
Lisa's saying, do each of your teachers have a separate login or is it one for the entire studio?
So we just have one for the entire studio. So the way that Zoom Pro works is it's $14.99 per month per user. So we created like the yoga lounge login essentially. And so because most of our teachers are teaching from the studio, it just stays logged in on Zoom. And then the teachers that are not teaching at the studio, so the one with the health stuff that's teaching at home, the one who's in Italy, and then we also have one more that her husband is a first responder. And so her and her kids actually went to go stay with her mom, like in interior BC. I think she's coming back this week, but just for kind of the height of this, just because there was a lot of stress around if he'd been exposed to the virus, et cetera, et cetera. And so we allowed her to teach from afar as well. And so we just gave them, they have the logins, they log into the account from where they are so that the students always know how to get in. So it's really like minimized the work on the admin side because our regular members like know how to access classes all the time, which is really nice. Like they know when they're happening, they know how to get into them, et cetera, et cetera. I guess one thing that was kind of interesting was when Zoom did their update on April. Yes. It was supposed to be April 4th and it happened the morning of April 3rd. So I don't know if that's because like Zoom is partly run out of China. So it happened on like April 4th on Asia time, not North America time. Anyways, we got like randomly hit with a password and then it was all of a sudden everyone's like, what's the password? I can't get in anymore. I've been using the same thing. Did you guys change the link? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh my God, no.
So do you do the password now or not?
Yeah, so you actually can't opt out of the password unless you set up separate meetings. And so we kind of went through the pros and cons of doing that. And we figured that like, okay, it'll be a lot of upfront work as we get everyone the password. But once everyone has the password, they know, we've asked them like, please save this information. They know, you know, they know that we're getting a lot of emails about this stuff. So people have been really good about like writing down the info. Like the students have been really good about writing down the info. So we decided that it'll just be easier to have the password to add that to all of our documents and all of our auto emails that go out, as opposed to every single class being a different meeting, and perhaps like the auto emails go out wrong and then we screw that up. So I think I did an interview for my podcast with PunchPass that just went out yesterday, and
Yeah.
PunchPass integrates with Zoom really nicely. And the girl that I talked to from PunchPass was talking about how you can like integrate with Zoom and it automatically sends like the meeting ID and stuff like that. And it can be different for every class. And because the two softwares talk to each other really nicely, it's pretty easy to do without too much admin work. As far as I know, MindBody Online's not really at like doing that. So if you're using MindBody, I would say do the same meeting, like use your like meeting ID. And so then you can just use one meeting for everything. And I think as long as you're putting out there in the communications, like that it's very clear that people need to pay for classes, people aren't going to try and sneak in. I mean,
Right.
of course, there's like the situation where, and I don't know if we've had this, like somebody could certainly turn off their video and their whole family could practice and maybe they're just paying one drop in, but like we can't do anything about that. The only thing we can do is, you know, ask people to pay and hope that they do. And in general, that's been pretty positive. So that was like a big windy curve from Lisa's question.
Well, and Lisa's saying, gotcha, thanks. That was super helpful. And I think if the worst thing that's happening is people's family members are sneaking on to do yoga, we're winning.
Yeah, I know. We had one of our teachers actually yesterday say like, hey, I've noticed like a couple people are joining and I can see on their videos that like their kids are coming into practice. And we were like, if their kids want to come practice for a couple minutes, like that's cool. If the worst thing kids are doing right now is like sneaking in for 20 minutes of yoga, like that's fine.
Lisa's saying I schedule all of the classes each week and turn off the password. That's a lot of admin work to be able to do that. I'd say things to look at is if you weren't already, I'm curious, Lisa, what are you using for your scheduling software? That would be my question. I know that Acuity and Calendly, and then you're saying PunchPass. Those would be the three then that integrate right with Zoom. I don't know if there are any others that people are using that integrate with Zoom. It'd be great to hear that in the comments. And the tool that my brother developed, that directory that now takes payment, he's like, okay, now I'm going to work with Zoom integration next. And I was, because he's getting asked to do it.
Yeah, Conrad's crushing it. That's awesome.
I couldn't believe yesterday he announced like everyone who wants to try it out right now, there'll be no fees. And I was like, what? Because we had talked about like at some point you have to make something for all the work you've put into this. And he's
done a really amazing job with it. But yeah, I think too, it depends like, you know, just how big your studio is, how much admin work it is for you. I don't think that there's, you know, one right way to do this. I think there's lots of options with lots of different softwares. And I think that it's just figuring out what's going to work for you and also for your students. Like knowing your clientele is so important in this. And for us, we just looked at, because our clientele is a little bit more mature. I mean, the less emails we can send them, the better, honestly. Like we have some of our regular members who at this point are just like showing up for classes. And, you know, we just have to make sure, one of the managers has to make sure that it gets into MindBody Online. And, you know, it's a little bit extra admin work, but if it means that like that person can show up and have a great class and they feel happy at the end of the day, like that's okay with me. And I think that, you know, it would be a bit of a headache if, like for us and our clientele, if we had to send out an email with a new, I guess, like link and yeah, I guess a new Zoom ID every single class. So that's why we've decided not to do it. We just looked at our clientele and, you know, who's coming and kind of how our members engage. Honestly, like it was the type of studio before this where most of our members didn't sign up beforehand. Most of them just showed up for class and the teacher would enter them into the system. So getting people to sign in online has been, it's been a thing.
That's amazing.
Like members of like 10 years are like, wait, do I even have a password for this? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, you're in MindBody, we promise.
I am in
Lisa's
the system.
Lisa's using MindBody and Zoom as well. So I wonder if you have any other questions about this, Lisa, for that. Carl saying, why is it so hard? I know. I feel like the world is just kind of figuring this out. And I'm guessing that you mean with the integration with Zoom. I'm wondering if that's what you mean. I don't know if MindBody has that on their radar to do that.
I know they just announced their live stream, so I think that some sort of integration is probably beta testing or coming down the pipeline. But
Right.
I'm assuming, I mean, your brother would know better than me. I am not like I'm like a computer person. I work on a computer all day and I can do basic tech stuff, but I'm not like, oh, this is what Zoom and MindBody need to talk to each other. To me, that seems like it must be challenging to do. So I totally get it.
Yeah. One person here is asking, is anyone using Offering Tree? So Amanda has talked with Offering Tree. So have I. I think they're an amazing company. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you know about Offering Tree?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love the team at Offering Tree. I love like everything Offering Tree is doing. The first time I met with their team, I met with Eddie and Alec, co-founders of the company, and just got like such a good vibe from them just as people. And then when they said like, we're looking at how to make website design easy for yoga teachers, I was like, oh, that's amazing. Because like one of the things, and I know you've probably heard this too, Shannon, is like this constant like, making a website is hard. I don't want a website. Do I really need a website? And I'm always like, yes, you need a website. No, it's not that hard. You can do it for like an affordable price, and you can do it in a way that can be functional and pretty simple. And Offering Tree is like way more simple than any of the other platforms out there. So before I decided to partner with them, I was like, okay, I want to try like the service. I want to make sure that it's easy. And I built like my little test website with them in like, honestly, like 10 minutes. I had the base of it. And then since I started working with them, they've added so much different functionality and capacity. So I think they're a great site if you are kind of more of a smaller business or just a yoga teacher teaching on your own. So maybe not a studio and not like under the umbrella of a studio, but you have, a modest following and people who want to come to your classes. You can basically have, your bio, your schedule, all of your information, and then you can integrate it with Zoom. So you could set up your IDs, you can take payment right from the website, you can email people right from there. So I feel like they've done a really good job at looking at what a lot of the other software programs were doing and just kind of brought it all into one and really simplified it in a really streamlined way. So I am a big fan of Offering Tree, particularly for like if you're just kind of a yoga teacher.
Yeah. And I think it's so great for
not just a yoga teacher,
but not a massive studio with multiple classes or multiple locations. That I think you start to get into something that you need something a little more robust. And also you can decide if you want to build a website with them, which they say 10 minutes. And I love that it took you 10 minutes. I talked to a yoga teacher the other day. She's like, that was a bit of a stretch. Maybe it would have been 10 minutes if I had all of my copy ready. So all of the wording for her website. She was like, okay, that took me the longest, which makes sense, really. I mean, that really does make sense that takes longer.
Yeah.
But sure. I love that it simplifies it. If we're seeing right now, yoga teachers are like, oh my gosh, I was teaching at a studio, it closed. Now what do? I don't have a website. That person, I would say the fastest thing to do is build one up on Offering Tree. You won't be able to customize it the same way. And I know that you have a link where I'm pretty sure people can get a discount. Offering Tree was telling me that yesterday. So I don't know if you want to share that in the comments, and we'll share it over in the Connected Yoga Teacher Collective as well.
Oh, I didn't realize I could see these comments. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I should tell our guests that at the beginning. Carl was saying, what he was saying was so hard was, why is it so hard to get students to sign in online before class? I think it wasn't in our, we were just like, well, we go and we show up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've wondered the same thing too. I think there's kind of like a cultural thing behind it, depending on what culture your studio's created.
Yes.
Shannon, I think I just sent you the link. I don't know. It's offeringtree.com/MBM.
Okay. Perfect. Oh yeah,
But
you
yeah,
did. Look at you.
but yeah, I've wondered like why it's so complicated as well, Carl. I kind of personally don't understand it. But I mean, I'm also not the same like demographic. So, I just try to understand that these people are, different demographic. And for some people, I think it's like they pay for, me, like they pay for me to have a job. And part of my job is to make sure that they can just show up to class, including online classes. And, if they're gonna keep being the heart and soul of our studio, then I think I'm fine with that. But yes, I totally feel you. There was one class I checked in maybe a week ago, and there was like 5 people registered on MindBody Online, and there was like 20 on Zoom. I'm like, this isn't adding up. There was like, I think like 13 or 15 people who like hadn't registered for class. And I was like, that emoji with like its brain exploding at the top. That's kind of how I felt.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
This is the link here if you want. It's 3 months of a discount using Amanda's link and with Offering Tree. If you're wanting to build a website or if you need something that schedules people, I would say go take a look at it for sure. I basically interviewed this company. When they reached out to me, I was like, all right, I want to know, like, what's your founding story? Like, who's running this company? All of these things. Because I want to dig into not just what's your product that you offer, but who is it? Like, what's your culture like where you work? And I was really impressed with their company for sure. So that's the link to use.
I had the same thing. Like I'm always the same way, especially, if I'm going to put like a partnership on my podcast or an ad on my podcast or, have them on my podcast in any way. Like I've done an interview with Alec, and I just, you want to make sure that they're in line with like the things that you're putting out there with your audience. And so I had the same thing. We had like and I feel like they were doing the same thing with me. We were kind of like interviewing each other, making sure it was a good fit. And
Yeah.
I just right away got a good vibe. And I feel like I kind of usually like trust if I get a good vibe with people, and, they seem to feel the same way about me. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Offering Tree. And I love like, as a small business myself, I really love working with small businesses. And, I feel like MindBody is really good for the studios that I work with because they're a little bit bigger. Like we have upwards of 50 people in an online class. And so MindBody's been really great for that. They have good capacity. But yeah, if you're smaller and you're just starting out, or you've lost your studio job and you're trying to figure out how to streamline this a little bit, like if you're currently in the situation where you're like DMing Zoom links and getting Venmos or e-transfers of payment, or maybe not accepting payment because it seems too complicated, I would definitely check out Offering Tree.
Yeah, for sure. Someone said, I've had a really good experience with them, so that's amazing to hear. I'm pretty sure they offered a 50%. So they did. They had this coupon that was for COVID, and then they told me the other day, you know what? Like that is going to run out, and they wanted to give people like Amanda, and they were talking about with me, we'd still like to give your listeners a discount, so that you can still use that one that I just shared. Here's a question. Do you have the MindBody app that is specific to your studio?
I attended the webinar, like learning more about it, but no, we decided not to do it. One, it's a little bit pricey, and especially being in Canadian dollars, our dollar is not so hot compared to the US dollar right now. So everything cost-wise, you have to add like 25% to. So I think it costs like $200 US a month. So just looking at upping our costs by, 100, 150 Canadian, we just looked at like, is this the best use of our money at this point, and decided that it wasn't. And most of that was because, like I kind of mentioned, our clientele is actually the type who just want to come to the studio and sign in there. So we felt like for the people that are coming to our studio, it's just not like the right fit with regards to the trade-off with price. I do work with another studio that's based out of McLean, Virginia, so just outside of DC, and their clientele is like super, like they've created the culture of everyone signs in before class. And so they're actually like looking into either the MindBody app or making their own app. And they feel like an app will really help the things that they're doing. So I think it is a great offering. It's just looking at like if it's going to mix well and work well for your students.
That's amazing. I also want to share here that I just looked up the prices are on the website, which I love to see. It really annoys me if I'm wondering how much is the class, how much is a pass. That's all on the website under prices. So clear. I recommend, any studio do this. And this is COVID-19 crisis pricing is what I see here, right? Special pricing.
Yeah. And I think that if you scroll down a little bit, we've still got our regular pricing there too. So you can kind of see.
Oh, what it was before.
Oh yeah. So we still got, you can see. So our drop-in was $20 and it's now $15. Our 1 month intro is still the same, $49. We haven't really got people buying like 1 week passes. And our 10 card has gone down to $120 as opposed to $170. And what we actually did, because we had a lot of people who'd purchased 10 passes in like January or February, or even like the beginning of March, we actually just, for those people who still had active passes who wanted to use them for the online classes, we added classes to them so that they felt like it was a little bit more like, instead of them being like, oh, well, I'd prefer COVID pricing, we were like, we'll just add, I think it worked out to be like 4 classes to your pass, just so that it felt a little bit more like equal, I guess you could say, a little bit more fair. And then something else that we do offer, and we offer this all the time, but we do have like, I don't know if this is all across Canada or just in this community, but you can actually get like an affordable services card in this community where if you make under a certain income per year, then you get this card. And there's a lot of businesses in town that give discounts. So we do have like an affordable discount or affordable membership for people who have this card. And then what we did is we created, and this is actually the only price that we didn't list, was we created a affordable membership for the online classes. And we just asked people to email us if they needed it, just because we don't want people buying that online. We don't want them just like purchasing it. We'd rather have a conversation with somebody about that situation, just to try to avoid the like, oh, this is the cheapest option, I'll just buy it. So our 1 month locals intro, which is for locals only, because we are a tourist town and lots of people will come and be like, I'll just buy a month because it's cheaper than the other options. You have to prove that you're a resident here. Which is, I've actually seen it other places. I went to a Wanderlust studio in Austin, Texas, and they had the same thing. I remember being like, oh, I'm here for a week. Like, can I use the intro pack special that you have? And they're like, oh, no, sorry, it's only for people who live here. So I totally get it. It's something that lots of studios do. I think it makes sense, especially if you are in a tourist town. But we've also done our affordable online membership as $49. I can't remember if it's plus GST. I think it's just $49 a month. And so that is like, if you've lost your job, but you still want to practice yoga, if you're not working at all, if you've been like really hit by this, if you're not getting like relief on your rent or something like that, we've got that. So you can see it's the little paragraph below the 10 pass.
That is amazing. That's super sweet of your studio to do that. It sounds like your studio is taking care of its teachers. It's taking care of the residents there and the people who have been really hard hit by this. That's so good to see. And it's thriving. Yeah. It's doing well.
Yeah, it's thriving. We actually we have regular meetings on Fridays, and we actually just took a look on Friday to see how our attendance compared to last year. And our attendance from last year to this year, so last year, no crisis. This year, everything online, global crisis, was within 25 students in attendance. So we were about 25 students lower in a whole week this year compared to last year. So I think that's like pretty good.
That is pretty good. I'd say that's really shows. And that's everybody trying to figure it out. Like, I know Sean teaches online and one of his students just showed up yesterday, and it took some like, how are you? Just checking in, how's it going? And when he showed up with all of the regular students, they were so excited to see him there. Like, sometimes it just takes some time to, all right, I guess we're going to do this.
Yeah, for sure. And we've definitely had people who, right away put their memberships on hold and that sort of thing. And they were like, I just don't know what things look like and stuff like that. And since then they've come back to the studio. They've been like, no, I need my practice right now. I need this community, etc. You know, we've had other people where they're like, hey, I can't afford to keep this anymore. And that's where we offer, you know, the affordable membership. Something else that's been really cool, like I know this pandemic has brought out, you know, all sorts of sides of people. And personally, I feel like I've gone through like all roller coasters of emotions. But
Yep.
it's been really beautiful to see like some of the generosity of people. Like we've had 2 students who have actually donated a lump sum of money to give other students memberships. So if somebody, we've been able to like, I think we've been able to gift 12 memberships to people, 12 1-month online memberships. And that's like, you know, if a longtime member says like, hey, I lost my job and like, I don't want this to go, but it does have to go. Like that's the type of person that we're like, we have this money that somebody's given us and we want to gift you a membership. And that's been like a really beautiful thing to see.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really inspiring. If our yoga students are feeling that way, they can donate to their local studio, and that helps everyone. That helps the teachers. That helps the whole yoga industry. And hugely that student who needs the yoga and is dealing with financial strain. Oh, that's so good.
We've actually seen it the other studio I work with too. We've had the same thing. Like people have been. There's been a couple people who have said like, hey, you know, charge me for my monthly membership and also, you know, charge me for a second month and gift that one to somebody else who needs it.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That
it's
is
like
so sweet.
Fuzzies, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I am so thankful for all of your questions. I see that if anyone else has questions for Amanda, let me just grab your website here. Or if you're a yoga studio and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how can we do this? How can we make this more streamlined? Then you can find her at mbomyoga.com. And do you want to talk about the work that you do with yoga teachers? Like how would people work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So I work with yoga teachers one-on-one. So either one-off consultation sessions similar to what Shannon does, or you can purchase a package with me if you want to work, you know, a little bit more longer term together. If you're uncertain of what it looks like to work with somebody one-on-one, you can always send me an email and we can just have that conversation. Or if you're unsure if like your needs are something within my wheelhouse, we can certainly talk about that. I really love working with teachers in all capacities, but specifically with, you know, businesses. And right now I've been working with lots of teachers on online businesses, you know, things like this, but for the yoga teacher. So I understand this pretty well for yoga studios, but I also understand that, you know, as a one-off yoga teacher, I wouldn't be like, oh, sign up for Mind Body Online. And, you know, that would be crazy. So going through different software options, ways to grow your email list, ways to get your students more engaged, strategies for building your business. I love working with newer teachers and helping them as they kind of emerge into the business world. So there's lots of different ways that we can work together. And if you want to get a feel for kind of the different topics I'm interested in and my passion for the business of yoga, you can definitely check out my podcast. Shannon's been on it twice, and we're actually going to record another episode after this, which is going to come out soon. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, you can email me info@mbomyoga.com if you want to chat or have questions, comments, feedback. I'm always down for a conversation. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It's been great. And this just goes to show, as I said, way at the beginning, the story of like when I first heard your podcast and I was like, oh, someone's already doing this. This is just a great way to showcase how working collectively and how we can do this as yoga teachers brings us so much more, like so much more support, abundance. You know, working collectively is a really powerful thing. So I hope that yoga studios and yoga teachers and communities really embrace that and see the power of that for sure. If people are wanting to see the replay of this, maybe you're just tuning in now or you've caught the end of it or you're like, where did that go? It will be here in the Connected Yoga Teacher group for 24 hours. And then tomorrow at 10 o'clock, it moves over to the Collective. And for the month of May, you can join the Collective for $1. Someone told me, I think the e-transfer fee will be like, or the payment fee will be more than the payment. Well, it might be, But I know that our yoga
It's worth
teachers are really needing the information, and we're building the library right now. And we wanted to see, is this something that yoga teachers want? So we've heard a resounding yes, and that's where it will live. And if you are a yoga teacher who's teaching online and you feel like, I want to share how I'm doing this and the setup of it, then you can also check this out. And there's an application form there. So thank you so much, Amanda. We better get over and do our podcast episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And I'm so grateful that, the yoga business world and the yoga world brought us together so many years ago. It's just been, a pleasure getting to know you over the last couple of years. And I'm always grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and your community. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. It's amazing having your comments and your questions and hearing what other people are doing. And, by no means do I think that everything we're doing is like the be all end all. So I loved hearing from Lisa with what she's doing. If anyone else has, thoughts, questions, suggestions, wants to share what they're doing, I would love to hear that, because like I said, this is a windy, crazy path that we're all trying to figure out together. And I think, like Shannon said, together is, how we get through this. And I think learning from one another is the best way to do that. So I'm grateful to be here, grateful for the collective. And thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.